Yes, Lord, thank you so much for this time with this global community of intercessors. And Father, we thank you that you are hearing the sound of our voice. And Lord, we praise you and ask, cry out for continued blessings on Israel, on the IDF, Father, in
Amen.
particular. And Lord, this is heavy on our hearts. So we thank you. Ari, so appreciate you, fellow community. Ari, obviously you're going to give us a war update because there's lots going on. But just you go ahead. I might ask a few questions later, but please share your heart. Thank you.
Sure. Anybody who's been watching the news has seen Israel over the last 2 months, for lack of a better word, blustering about entering Rafiah, or Rafah as they call it. Rafiah is in the southern tip of the Gaza Strip. It borders Egypt on one side, and Rafah is really the last stronghold of the Hamas. We believe that their senior leaders are there. We believe that many of the hostages are there, although we can't be 100% certain. We do know that while the Egyptians have tried very diligently to seal the border, there are breaks in the fence, and there are underground tunnels that enable Hamas to import weapons from Sinai, such that not destroying, not taking out Rafiah is essentially similar to what Benny Gantz, the minister Benny Gantz, has said, similar to putting out 80% of a fire. You put out 80% of a fire, the 20% of the fire comes back and burns everything else. So it's something that needed to be done. We were blustering about it because the United States and the Europeans are against Israel going in. They feel that it's going to cause a humanitarian crisis. And so Israel spent the last more than a month negotiating for the release of hostages that would come at the expense of a Rafiah invasion. Israel was put in a very bad position. We were put in receive mode. And when you are negotiating, you do not want to be in receive mode. You want to lead the negotiations. Israel is not leading the negotiations. Israel was following. We look very, very bad. And last night, Israel decided enough is enough, and we're going into Rafiah. And there was an artillery barrage. Airplanes started bombing Rafiah, and ground troops started moving in. Right after we started moving in, the Hamas said, "Oh, by the way, we agreed to sign on that hostage negotiation contract you wanted us to sign. Here, we're signing on the dotted line." And on the one hand, it's interesting what a show of force can do. On the other hand, it looks as if we were played by Hamas and by the Europeans and potentially by the United States. There was an article in Axios today that talks about that. How could it be that everybody knew about this except for Israel? Even the United States seemed to know about it. The head of the CIA is sitting out there in Egypt, and he's working on it as well. And we came out smelling like roses. Israel has two choices: to either stop and pull back our forces, and say, hold on, we'll take a look at that negotiation, what it is that you're offering, your position, or Israel can say, forget about it, we're just going in, we're going to do it. And I personally think that Israel is going to continue. There are too many soldiers that have gone in. The population in Israel has been readied for it over the last day, and I think this is going to be Custer's last stand. We were told when we met with the Minister of Defense, Yoav Gallant, that this operation would take between 2 and 3 months. I think the brunt of it will be over in 2, and then we'll spend the next month or so mopping up, and then we got to figure out what to do with Gaza. And of course, a whole lot depends on what we find. Do we find hostages? Do we find Yahya Sinwar? All of the interesting thing is that the Gazans, right before on Sunday, they opened fire on Israeli army positions on the Gazan border with mortars from the Gaza Strip, people that were responsible for humanitarian aid, and they killed 3 soldiers. And this really lit a fire under the Israeli populace. How dare you Who do you think you are? You expect us to risk our lives to give you humanitarian aid, and yet you act like nothing less than animals. Something similar happened yesterday in the north, in a city called Metula, it's in the northern tip of Israel. It has been evacuated on October the 8th. The Hezbollah fired off a killer drone. The drone slammed into a building in which was housing soldiers, and two of them were killed. Interesting thing is that 2 weeks ago, my good friend was in that building. He was serving in for 40 days on the northern border, and the people that replaced him were killed. We are fighting enemies on all sides that are ruthless, and we cannot let our guard down. And that's what it's going to be. Over the next couple of weeks, I will assume that most of the media is going to be looking at Gaza. There's going to be an outcry. There's going to be a humanitarian problem, and it is my fervent desire that Israel will say, "It is what it is, guys. You brought this upon yourselves again and again and again. We're going to do what we need to do, whether or not we have support from the United States."
Wow, absolutely. Thank you so much. You know,
Welcome.
it's just this thing I believe is like not leaning on America to save Israel, but it's really truly relying on the Lord. I want to ask you
Wait a
about
second, Patricia. Can I tell you something interesting? I
yes,
saw countless videos over the last day
yes,
of commanders
yeah.
and army rabbis briefing the troops before they go in, saying the prayer for the IDF soldiers, saying psalms, blowing the shofar. People understand that what they are doing, they are going into battle for something that is greater than themselves. This is not just a war. You're serving in the army because I serve, and I'm going to make some money and go home. We are fighting for our lives and for the lives of our families, and this is existential. And the Israelis understand it. These were heart-rending videos.
Yes,
Unfortunately, they're all in Hebrew, so you can't understand them, but they're heart-rending.
yes, absolutely. Actually, I'm just going to quickly before you leave us, because I want to ask you one more question, but uh, show for a second here. By the way, I thought Ben Shapiro's little wording here was very well true. Israel, here are the terms of our proposed ceasefire. Hamas, no, we will fire rockets at your soldiers at humanitarian aid entry. Israel, okay, we're going to Rafah. Hamas, we accept a ceasefire. We negotiated with ourselves. Media, Hamas accepts ceasefire. They want peace. So there you
That's actually
go.
what happened.
And this is one of videos. I'll show it later
There you go.
because can I ask you this? Tell me about the Hezbollah for a moment, because it was very sad when I saw again that these soldiers died in the north. Just what's your thought about Hezbollah? Because it's always back and forth, back and forth. Like, is Israel, do you think, going to go into Lebanon after this, or unsure? Thoughts on that?
Hezbollah has to be next. Hezbollah is not now. We're going to keep fighting a low profile warfare with Hezbollah. Just make
Yeah.
sure that we're covered. We cannot bring back the people back to their homes. They every time a house takes an anti-tank weapon. Every time killer drones fly into houses in Metula. People that live in the north say, "How do you expect me to go back?" I believe that Hezbollah will be next. The French are trying to broker a deal. The French have limited experience in brokering deals. They're far better at retreating, for instance, when it comes to the army. They also have some pretty good wine,
Yeah.
but brokering deals is not their forte.
Mm.
So I believe that eventually we're going to fight the Hezbollah, and it's going to be terrible. But let's finish this battle first, and keep our eyes in the north. But let's fight this battle first. Win it with overwhelming force.
Okay. One comment to you. I know that it's disheartening for Israelis to look at what's going on in university campuses, but I'm sure that you know this already, that there's really proof of outside actors coming in, George Soros funding. I don't know. I just feel like that, there's so much of where America, the average American Canadian, stands with Israel, and then you got this loud craziness on university campuses. So anyways, I
To be
just
as
feel like
optimistic as you, but I believe, Patricia, I would like to be as optimistic as you, But regardless of who is financing this, the people that are participating are university students. And we're seeing what we saw in the 1960s again. People that attend these universities are typically to the left. They associate Israel with everything they find wrong with the US, and therefore everything Israel does is wrong. And this allows them to support Hamas, which is a terrorist organization. When you have queers for Palestine, what they don't understand is that the queers are the first people up against the wall when Hamas takes over. They don't understand that, and that's completely understandable. So to foist the blame onto external actors like Qatar or George Soros, I mean, the blame belongs squarely on the shoulders of the students who were there. And these students, I was conversing with Brandon Williams, one of the congressmen who was with us on the tour, and on the recent tour, and I got along very, very well. And he sent me an article that sent a tweet that he put out on the what formerly known as Twitter, now currently known as X. And he said that there is a list of demands that the Syracuse University students have given to the university in order to meet these demands. That will enable them to break up their rioting, as it were. So Brandon said, you know what my demands are? My demands are that you get the hell out of the university now, or I'm going to come in with the police. Those are my demands, and you better believe it that I'm going to carry them out. Lo and behold, there's nothing going on in Syracuse.
They're modeling Hamas in their negotiations. So yes, absolutely mixture. By the way, 30 years ago when I was in university, I had a professor who extolled the virtues of communism. So I was thinking, that's 30 years ago. So I understand how this is going on. Anyways, going to mute
The U
that.
of T and York University are not good places for Jewish students today.
I was in Western in London. You know that one probably too, but
I do. You mentioned that.
okay, can you tell me this? And last question for you. We're praying for your family. I've got the family, your kids' names and your in my Bible. Tell me again, how are they doing? How are the IDF
Really, in short, all of them are out of the army for now,
Okay.
except for my daughter. My daughter is still is in the army. She's sitting underground in Tel Aviv, determining who shall live and who shall die. My two sons are out of the army, but they are going back in to the northern border in June. And my son-in-law, who was in a tank and who took an anti-tank weapon and was saved by the grace of God, his wife is having a baby over the next couple of weeks, and the Army's giving him a little time off, so he won't be going back for a while. Thank God.
All right, Chaim to life. Okay, God bless you. Thanks a million. You're really a great resource. Thanks. Okay, everybody, we're going to head into prayer. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. That was excellent. As we know,